Hello everyone, I'm Crispy Kareem and on this channel I make videos in which I say my opinion, I comment on certain subjects and I get things off my chest. And you've come to listen for some reason, so thank you very much. If you like what you see and what you hear, press the like button, subscribe to my channel and share this video and channel with your friends and your loved ones. And if you don't, then force me to go hiking with a bunch of xenophobic people who know where I'm from, because this is what we're going to talk about today, which is an article that came onto my timeline, my Twitter timeline, about a month ago, thanks to a British black YouTuber called Patience Zena. I believe she's originally from Zimbabwe. It's not really important. The important thing is it's an article about why BAME people don't want to go hiking, and she did not really agree with the narrative that was being peddled by this article. Now, for the most part, I think now I don't want to. I'm not under the impression that racism doesn't exist in the UK. There are obviously systemic and institutional manifestations of it, as many people have experienced, including some of my current and former peers. But there are some discourses that get thrown into the whole racism mix that kind of destroys the credibility of the whole idea that there is still an issue with racism and xenophobia in the UK. And this is my problem with articles like this and the people who peddle them. I try to mind my own business. I am, by my own definition, white, and so I don't experience racism. But when it comes to power structures and perceptions. But if I see a take that is so outlandish, I will comment on it because my mind is just a melting pot of opinions and thoughts, and sometimes I have to say them out loud and go put them on the internet in video form so that I can piss whoever has listens to it off. So you're gonna get mad by the end of this video, but I'm just gonna talk about this article nonetheless because it's ridiculous. And even the title is itself problematic. Black and brown people are reclaiming the English countryside. Who are you reclaiming it from? When was it yours? I don't think any land belongs to any specific race, ethnicity, or group of people, but some people seem to forget, this, because the way of their manner of talking about xenophobia and racism in Britain is just a copy-pasted version of the conversation happening in America. So they'll say things like, we are reclaiming this from the white people, when in actuality some or a lot of the white people are actually native to this country. I'm not, but a lot of them are, and that means the conversation needs to, the actual nature of the conversation about racism and xenophobia needs to change, because otherwise no one's going to take you seriously when you're trying to reclaim something from someone who it does in a sense belong to or has more of a connection to. If you don't have English heritage, like I don't, you're not going to have as much of a ancestral connection to the English countryside as someone who does. And so it's really weird that people have this mindset about reclaiming things and taking things back, and it just doesn't make sense. It's whose is it? Obviously everyone should be allowed in the countryside. I've done my DofE. I went to a very ethnically diverse school where I did my DofE and with the expedition, and there are black and brown people who like hiking, and there are black and brown people who don't like hiking. But she brings her evidence. This woman, she brings her evidence base with her. She talks about how BAME hikers only make up 1% of the hiking population, and that BAME people have 11 times less access to green space of the time, and in time spent in it, only 15% is in the countryside compared to 38% for white people. Now, I'm not going to dispute those facts. I have not done my own research. I don't research this stuff because I'm not an ethnographer or a sociologist. I'm sure like whoever researched this really put their time into it and like wanted to understand a lack of access to green space, whether it's parks or gardens or, you know, the countryside. And it is no secret that the majority of BAME people do live in cities. Like this woman is biracial, so she's black and white, like on each side of the family. And when I'm gonna be honest, my conceptualization around BAME people is mainly going to be based around my life in London, because I haven't left London in, well, actually I left London like last month. I haven't like properly lived outside of London in like 3 years. So because of COVID, so it's yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm going to say about like geographical things and going places is going to be very London centric. I'm really sorry if you don't live in London, or you live in, because I live in Old Trafford or Manchester or Birmingham or like whatever. But it's no secret, yeah, they live in those places, and a lot of the areas they live in tend to be a bit more urbanized, a bit more built up, like Brixton, Southall, Ilford, Whitechapel, Dalston. You know those places, they have like their like a tight-knit community kind of feel. And you know, that doesn't apply to everyone. I'm sure there's someone in the comment who's going to go in the comment section here, there's going to be like, well, I'm a Nigerian person and I live in Surrey and I love my white neighbours and my white neighbours are not racist, and that's fine, that's fine. You can believe that. I'm not trying to pretend you don't exist. It's just like what I know about the black and brown people around me. And you know, this author has acknowledged that there is subsequent, you know, I think in my opinion that would be a subsequent thing, a lack of interest in this kind of thing, like hiking and like being in the countryside. And a lot of some of it is to do with just like not being around it, and so just having other activities to do. Like I think in a lot of, well, in a world where we didn't have like cuts to the arts and like cultures and cultural stuff, there'll be a lot of interest in like music and dance based events, or depending on like or more like leisure center based activities and stuff, and things that are just like really like proximate to you, like within walking or a short commute distance, because you know, it's that's just like the result of community building and like communities existing in specific places for ethnic minorities. And so she does eventually talk this up to, this is a white supremacy issue that needs to be solved with forced representation and yada yada yada. And I'm going to go through this like further. She does talk about like colonialism, and I'm going to insert here exactly what she said with a screenshot. And for my undergrad, I did the British Empire, and like and colonialism and its impact on like development discourses, in like past relationships between the global north and the global south. And I can confirm that these are like legitimate discourses that existed under colonial times. Maybe there are people who do hold that attitude. I can't definitively say that no one doesn't. And there are people who do genuinely want to treat British land like, you know, this ultimate, like, this thing is like a very political thing, and that, and this whole idea of sovereignty and the whole seeing black and brown people in nature is a form of violation of that sovereignty. However, acts of hate, like the examples detailed above, stem from purity and national identity. For those who believe that only white people have claim to Englishness, it follows that quintessentially English landscapes would be vigilantly guarded with the same exclusionary vigour. In a lot of the philosophy of the early environmental movements, there was a parallel between the idea of pristine landscapes and idea of pristine races, says Beth Collier, psychotherapist, ethnographer, and founder of nature-based community group Wild in the City. This fueled the dispossession of lands for a lot of indigenous people and the idea that they were a blight on the landscape and needed to be removed in order for the landscapes to be pure and to be enjoyed. I think unconsciously and sometimes consciously that mindset still exists. There is a perception of green and pleasant land, and encountering people of colour in those spaces is seen as an intrusion. Collier believes there is an unwritten social contract that keeps black people and ethnic minorities confined to cities and urban spaces, so to step beyond these confines is unfamiliar and challenges the status quo of who belongs where. She points to the legacies of colonialism and slavery, specifically the long history of non-white groups being accused of primitivism for having a close relationship with nature. Upon encountering the British Empire and migrating to the West, we were told we were progressing because we were living in more technical, affluent cities, Collier explains. So nature was backwards and cities and urban life were more progressive. That's led to the internalization of a sense of being inferior for having a relationship with nature. Colonialism denies us a sense of empowerment in nature. It disenfranchises us. I just don't think it should play such a prominent role in your decision to go hiking or to enjoy the great British countryside or not. And if you do genuinely fear that you will be, you know, attacked for your ethnic or racial background in the countryside, take other people from a similar background or just friends in general to like make you feel less intimidated. It will really help you. I mean, help you. You know, whether you're with being lost or just like it's countryside is better enjoyed with friends anyway. Regard racism or no racism, it's a good group activity. Choosing to exclude yourself from spaces as an individual, that if you want to be in, even if people do want to be in them, is just gonna perpetuate this idea that you don't belong there to those who want to exclude you. And I know it's easier said than done, and I have white privilege, but just get yourself in. If you really want to hike, just do it. Like, find a way to do it. I'm not a hiking expert. I do want to get into hiking myself. I just need to find the friends for it and then get out there. And this author, she does share like very real anecdotes of this sort of thing happening to ethnic minorities in the countryside and just general hostility. But I did have an issue with, and you can read like the stories in the article. I'll link it in the bio below. But I did have an issue with one of the stories, which is where a black person, I think he was part of a wider group of black people, like with his friends who were also black, and he like had someone come up to him and complain about him playing loud music, which is for him apparently essential for his way to enjoy the countryside. Now I'm gonna go off on a bit of a tangent, and just like say my opinion on this. I understand that you guys like loud music. I get it. I commute through a predominantly black area. I live in a really ethnically diverse area, so I do encounter the occasional black guy like once every month or 2 months, like with like a really loud boombox and very loud music to play. Which is that's your choice if that's the way you need to assert your existence as a community or as a black person. That's fine. I'm not gonna like in places like Croydon or Dalston, I'm not going to be like, can you turn your music down, please? Because actually, I don't like to listen to it. Like, because obviously, I could understand that you could feel that that's an attack on your community, and you might find that to be a bit racist. So, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and my own headphones on to listen to what I want to hear. Headphones. But the English countryside is a different place. It is generally a place where people do like just the quietness and the stillness of it. And I think playing loud music, I don't know how loud it was with those people in particular, but if it is one of those boom boxes, I imagine it would have been quite loud. And it you know you kind of do have to respect the local people, and if they do tell you to turn down your music, I'm sorry, but you really should. It's just it's rude to like just play very loud music without considering that not everyone wants to listen to it. And I'm sorry that you had to hear it this way through like someone random bloke speaking to you bluntly on YouTube, but it's just not everyone wants to listen to your music. I'm really sorry, and it's just have that in mind before you turn before you go into the middle of the countryside and you turn the music on. I think uh, I remember in the story they also alleged to have by this person who shouted like asked them to turn down music that they were also littering and other things, and it's not like there's like it's not uncommon for racist white people to make up allegations about black people to justify policing their existence in public spaces. So I'm not sure about the littering or anything, but it's just the loud music thing that bothers me, particularly because one of the whole thing that the author of this article talks about how the existence of black and brown people is treated as a disturbance of nature, when if you're playing loud music in the middle of the countryside, it is quite annoying. And like obviously most black people don't play loud music in public in general. I know that. And I'm sure most black and brown hikers don't play loud music in the middle of the countryside. It's not fair to stereotype people based on the actions of one person, but you're not making a strong and coherent case if that's the kind of thing you think is discrimination when you're trying to create a picture of negatively stereotyping people. So it's just that's just how I see it. Feel free to politely disagree with my comment section. Um, there's also this idea that knowledge of ecology and nature has been appropriated from black people and stolen by white people to have them take credit for taking care of nature and being custodians of the natural world. And that would definitely make sense if we were talking about like Africa or Asia, where often um things have historically happened that has left a lot of native populations dispossessed from the natural world surrounding them, because often their relationship with nature, as she has pointed out in the article, had them painted as savages and backwards. And the lingering impacts of colonialism and Orientalism were like still impacting that society. I don't really know how, because I haven't done much colonialism studies since my first year of my undergrad, but I in England, I think it's just weird that that you would be shocked that white people would have a connection with nature here, because it's England, it's the UK. I mean, who do you think is native to this land? We all have a right to be here, whether it be on citizenship or need or whatever, just want to be here. I don't really believe in national borders and stuff, but it's just it's this like, what do you know more about English nature than English people that do? Like, not all nature is made the same, and you can't just apply any kind of Orientalist, Orientalism, racist discourse and apply it to every single area in a uniform way, because things happen in different contexts and you need to treat it as a case by case basis. Another thing the author alludes to is how nature is not very accessible for people who live in cities, and the majority of BAME people, as I said earlier, do live in cities. Namely London, Manchester, Birmingham, whatnot. I live in London, so they require access and car use. 93% of journeys to nature hotspots are done by car. Just because thank you NIMBYs for making it difficult for public transport users to access nature. I imagine maybe maybe you don't want the wrong people in nature. That's why you don't want us to be able to take public transport there. So that's a point for the author. Um, and again, train and public transport connections to those natural areas need to improve, and they need to be cheaper because there is no reason it should be that expensive. However, I used to live next to the South Downs National Park in when I was at the University of Sussex, and that was about an hour from London, an hour and 15 minutes. The train tickets, if you book a bit in advance, or even like just like right before, they tend to be about 12. Like I looked now for a few months ahead, it's like £12 on Southern Railway. Southern tends to be a bit cheaper than most rail operators. Um, Southern and North Downs National Park as well. That's quite close to London. Epping Forest, reachable by Central Line. So have to think about it. However, hiking equipment is expensive. And when I did my DFE, the equipment we used was provided by the school, and I believed it was publicly funded or whatever. I remember the DFE, what's it called? So yeah, before you like put too much pressure on yourself to go to like the Peak District or Ben Nevis, like just think about like you know and um think about like areas that are a bit closer to you and more realistic and affordable to reach. I don't know what's around Manchester and Birmingham. I mean, apparently Manchester and Sheffield are separated by the Peak District, so that might be the most reasonable place for you to go. And maybe you do have good public transit links there. I don't know. But whatever, I understand. And obviously with the there is, I think, correlation between like ethnic minority racism and average earnings within certain communities. So I understand that those things tend to be harder to access in terms of like equipment. So yeah, I remember with the whole DFE, when my instructor was doing like buying the equipment for our school, she said that, oh, I met a father who had spent up to about £400 on equipment. God knows how much it costs now with this like cost of living crisis and inflation and everything. But £400, this was like in 2014, and yeah, I can understand that's a lot of money to spend, especially in an area like where I live. I know I sound like really posh, but I really do live in one of the poorer areas of London. So, I mean, I'm not gonna force myself to like present as poor, but yeah. So I would. She does talk in the beginning about like these groups, like black hikers. I can't remember what the black hiker one was, but there's also Muslim hikers, and I think those are good groups to join if you want to feel less intimidated by the thought of discrimination in the countryside. It is reasonable to expect it because when you're from such an isolated village and don't really see things that people that look different to you, you tend to treat people that look different to you as a bit of a with a bit of aggression. So it's understandable why some BAME people might be a bit like scared of going to the countryside. So obviously those groups are there to help maybe cultivate an interest in hiking with BAME people. But I think that is, in my opinion, that is genuinely the main factor. It's literally just a lack of interest in hiking. I'm pretty sure there is a running joke among black comedians about we do not like camping. So I don't know, maybe tell them to shut up before you start yelling at white people. Um, because it's kind of like lack of introspection, just like reflection. But the bit where it gets really ridiculous is like at the end where she says like, oh, the boards that like represent and manage the British countryside need to be majority people of color, like the global majority, even though the like borders she's talking about are not responsible for the majority of the global countryside. It's just the British countryside, and Britain is a majority white country, and you know, you don't need to like just force your way into like institutions on the basis of your skin color to have this like forced agenda of get black and brown people in the countryside when you don't even know if they're going to engage with it or not. You could have all these like diversity and engagement programs and they would not be successful because you know, whilst putting those people in those like positions of like influence in the um organizations that manage like hiking and the countryside, because they're just not interested. Like, you really, I think it really is just about gauging interest more than anything else. And it um there's just this really flawed mindset that like every single issue needs to be contextualized in white supremacy when it isn't always the case. And I'm saying that especially now because of the whole Mizzy situation, and everyone's trying to say like, oh, if he was white, or he's being, there's an issue around um there are issues around how black people are treated when they behave poorly on social media, and how white people are treated when they behave poorly on social media, which, as correct as it is not relevant and not particularly appropriate to bring up when the actions of Mizzy were really, really inappropriate, like aggressive and just were discomfort inducing. And it, you know, you can't force representation in anywhere like where like without understanding what like people want to be represented in. And it's this author, like, this person has not in any way, I don't feel like this person has really like looked around to see like, does every black and brown person want to be this heavily represented in the hiking scene and the management organizational bit of the British countryside, or is it just a her thing? Because that is the issue. And then the whole reclaim and appropriation thing, where again, as I said in the beginning of the video, I think we copy and paste the racism discourse from America too much, rather than treat racism is in Britain as what it is, which is uniquely British. And you know, if you are the kind of person who believes that there is an issue of racism in the UK, as I am, and this author is, then you need to have a conversation about it that approaches it as uniquely British, and you need to figure out the details of and the really like microcosm or whatever. I'm sorry if that's the wrong word, of the issue is, and you know, then tackle racism. Don't just copy and paste American stuff and then say go off like, okay, we need 80% an 80% black workforce in this organization to make hiking in the UK safe for black and brown people. It doesn't make sense. It's just already like, that's the really outlandish bit. Like, she did make some good points. I just don't think they were particularly relevant to the like overall premise of the article, and I think it kind of just really damages the credibility of the overall racism and xenophobia discourse in the UK. And I just, even though I am not a black person, I am white, I am still an ethnic minority. I do like sometimes when it does come to like perceptions of ethnic minorities, it can hit me personally, and I just don't want to have outlandish opinions and think pieces being brought out as a way of shutting down more legitimate issues, that when they are brought up and people going, well, you think that this person thinks this, when it's obviously not true, so why should I listen to your opinion about your experience of the UK on this? It's really counterproductive. And that's my opinion. you can politely disagree with me in the comment section, but do be polite. We are here for a civil discussion. We are not here to yell at each other. We are not here to curse each other or be mean to each other. We want to be nice. Okay? So please, again, subscribe to my channel, press the like button, share this with your friends and loved ones. Link to my social media and other relevant things are in the description box below. And again, oh, I wanted to say about the racism in Britain thing. Like, read. I'm gonna link to a book called This Is Not America: Why Black Lives Matter in Britain, which I think would be good for you to read. I have not read it yet, but I really do want to read it. So I need to finish what I'm reading now and the other two books I have, but it is on my to read wish list in my heart. So goodbye and hike on.